Donald Trump is a narcissist, a pathological liar, and has a worldview that promotes toxic masculinity. What are we supposed to learn from this spiritually? And what are we supposed to learn from the people that follow Donald Trump, the MAGA cult, as I will refer to them? And what does following narcissists do to your body? And what does being a narcissist do to your physical body? Is this having detrimental health effects, for example, for both follower and leader? Let's look into all that. Welcome to Trevor's Tarot, Astrology, and Spirituality. First of all, a huge thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to everybody who likes, watches, comments on the video. If you've donated money to the channel, a huge, huge thank you. Okay, so while this channel's aim is mostly to be spiritual in nature, I don't think we can separate spirituality from the events that we're currently living through. And what we're currently living through is this, as I see it from my perspective of scrying and intuition, is we're living through a period of time where a large chunk of the American population and a little bit of the people outside of the US are following a narcissistic leader in the President of the United States, Donald Trump. What is that saying about us as a society? What should we know if we're not followers? And I'm assuming if you're watching this channel, you're not. If you are a follower of Donald Trump, you probably should stop the video now and go find something else. Your comments will be deleted. So, what do we need to know? So, what are we supposed to learn from narcissistic, pathological liars? I think we'll ask the toxic masculinity question separate because I don't think those are connected, but I think there's a slight connection between narcissism and pathological lying. I don't think it's a solid connection, but let's put those two together though. What are we supposed to learn? Narcissists, pathological liars. What are they supposed to teach us? I just heard the phrase, the truth is fragile. Truth is fragile. It's interesting. I think the point being is that if you allow one lie, all of a sudden you allow a multitude of lies. And I think that's what we've seen happen in the media, for example. So what are we supposed to learn from narcissistic and pathological liars? We're supposed to know that they really do believe that they are always right, that what their opinions are the correct opinions, and that their passions and their desires should be everybody's passions and desires. They really believe that. It keeps us from starting anew. They're prevented from reinventing themselves. They're not able to do that. They're limited in many ways. They can't just up and reinvent themselves into not a new person, but starting a new career, making new friends. This is not something that is easy for them. They're not able to reinvent themselves as easily as more mentally stable people. They're constantly having to juggle the lies that they've told to, and even though they'll tell lies that contradict the previous lies, they try to keep consistent in their lying. They try to keep a consistent narrative. I think they're also often influenced by other people. The ship there in the background represents overseas influence, but I think here in this situation, it just represents others' influence. So people maybe they idealize um, whoever that might be. In the case of Donald Trump, it very much concerned me when he referred to the leader of Germany in the 1930s and 40s as having some good qualities. Because I do think they take inspiration from others because they're not capable of inventing it themselves. They can't self-inspire. They're not the type that, is bored on a Saturday and goes to Hobby Lobby or Michael's or a craft store and buys a canvas and some paints and starts painting even though they've never painted before. They're just not those type of people because they fear failure. They're obsessed with money, finances, and status. That's what it's all about for them. And more the status than the money and the finances, but they do think money plays a role in their status. So if you have a narcissist in your life, that doesn't necessarily mean they're as extreme as Donald Trump. So I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is they might be more likely to refer to themselves as the breadwinner of the family. They might point out that they make more money than other people in the family, or that they carry more influence than other people in the family, because this is what is telling them that they're successful. But what they don't realize is that success has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with status, that life is not a competition, but rather a journey and an exploration. They just can't see it that way. That's why they'll never be able to take the fool's journey. They'll never be able to step off into the unknown and experience the things most of us have experienced. They're just incapable. And if they do experience some of these things, they suppress them. They'll suppress grief, for example. They don't allow themselves to feel it. It's um, just the way their makeup is. They value partnerships, and this is at the center of the reading, but they value partnerships that can help them get ahead. And by get ahead, we mean get ahead financially or status. The other relationships, they might value them on a lower level. That doesn't mean, like, for example, they don't love their children. It just means they don't value their relationship with their children as much as they might value their relationship with somebody they see as a potential business partner. Like their value system has been so tainted by one, money, power, prestige, and status, and also by needing to be correct, right, and to be leading the way forward rather than allowing life to happen. They try to force life to happen. That's what I'm getting. Yeah, they're trying to force life to happen. They're trying to manifest things into existence without thinking about whether they're good for themselves. Right. It's like, the stories you hear all the time about the people that won the lottery and it turned out to be bad for them. Now, whether the stories are true or not, it's irrelevant. But manifesting things into your life that are harmful is a real thing. And you might not think they're harmful at the time. That's why I always tell people that are looking for new jobs or new careers is, you should really ask yourself if you're going to manifest or pray or whatever, you should, and this is Trevor's personal opinion, you should pray or manifest that the right job finds you not that you get this specific job, because that specific job might not be right for you. And it can actually lead to some other devastating consequences. So we have to be careful in what we manifest. Now, most people just are, you know, manifesting is a very personal thing, whether you do it or don't do it, in a traditional sense, or whether you're just visualize things when you close your eyes before bed. All of that's manifesting, law of attraction stuff. You know, it's sometimes we don't know what's best for us. So sometimes it's better to just ask the universe to help us get what's best for us. Versus the narcissist will say, try to manifest a position of power, right? Manifest a promotion that maybe they're not qualified for, which later leads to problems. And same with pathological liars. I'm putting those in the same group. They often throw themselves into work or what they perceive to be work. Now, some of them are unemployed, poor, and rely on others, but they perceive themselves as being busy. They perceive themselves as working hard, whether that means they're sitting in the basement on a computer, just chatting on forums about extreme political views, or whether they actually are working hard and they are kind of a workaholic. Both of these things can happen, certainly. But regardless of whether they actually are working hard, they will perceive themselves as one of the hardest working people ever. Even if that means they've been working hard looking for a job, that is how they will perceive themselves. They often walk away from people that don't want to play the game with them. They'll just emotionally detach, and they might actually even physically detach, and they might actually cut off contact. This is not uncommon for people with narcissistic traits and pathological lying traits. They're scared of the truth. They're scared of being exposed. They kind of constantly live in fear. So they see themselves as their path is the only path, and they will form partnerships with whoever will promote them going along that path, while at the same time fearing that they'll be discovered as an imposter. Most of them do suffer from imposter syndrome. That's what I'm getting. They often will throw themselves into work, or at least act like they're the busiest people in the world. And they will use partners to justify that, such as, if this is a romantic entanglement, I'm the breadwinner, so can you do these other tasks? And they're often juggling a lot of things on their plate that is influenced by people that they've looked up to, either in history or in the past. This is often a parent, I think, or a grandparent. Could be a historical figure as well. They're incapable of taking the next step in life. They're not capable. That does not excuse their behavior by any stretch of the imagination. They're just not capable of stepping into the unknown. They need to be in control. They need control because control is to them a feeling of protection. But in reality, most of us know control is an illusion. We can certainly plan a vacation for, say, October. I'm recording this in mid-April. Does that mean that that vacation in October is going to go off without a hitch? Not necessarily. There might be some big event that happens in between that's beyond our control. And most of us know that. But for the narcissist, I think they really think they are in control. And they're not. They often will manifest things that without thinking about them on whether they're healthy or not. And they view their value based on their bank account, on their status, um, their social positioning, their socioeconomic status, their whether they're liked in the community. All of these things is what gives them value, versus a lot of other people might just find value in the little things, such as, grandchildren, children, pets. And they're very quick to walk away from things that don't fit their agenda. They don't want to hear that they're doing something wrong. They're incapable. Actually, most of them are incapable of hearing it. Now, not all of them. I don't think this means that there's no hope that, all narcissists are going to be narcissists the rest of their life. I don't think that. And I don't think everybody's going to be as extreme as Donald Trump, but it can certainly happen. They sometimes view themselves as God, um, or as they should be the one calling the shots. The Hierophants about the church, the Pope, and government and courts. Uh, they view themselves as their opinion is what everybody else's opinion should be, including those entities. And they sometimes have a God complex. What they don't realize is that they've confined themselves to this very narrow worldview in which they're like missing out on a huge amount of things, right? As soon as you refer to countries in Africa as S-hole countries, you've now limited yourself to not wanting to go to the S-hole countries, right? So these lies and these I'm better than this image really is quite limiting. They're very toxic to be around often. Now, there's the various levels of narcissism. So if you have a narcissist in your life, I'm not saying they're always toxic, but they often can be very toxic to be around. They're very much about spreading mis and disinformation, especially to cover up any mistakes that they've made previously, or to cover up a previous lie. They'll spread more lies. And they very much embody the devil card. They want people around them to be in servitude to them rather than um, equal partners. And this is very true of Donald Trump. So that kind of explains, I think, what we need to know about them. Let's ask the same question, but what do we need to know about this toxic masculinity movement in the world? So the Andrew Tate, Joe Rogan, I throw him in there for entertainment purposes only. I think all of these people have a really perverse view of masculinity. Donald Trump certainly fits this bill. JD Vance seems to talk that game. I don't know if he actually believes it. That's a different story. So, what do we need to know about toxic masculinity? Yeah, I think toxic masculinity just comes from a fear of failure. Like it's easier to blame your failures on others in society than it is to accept that you failed at something. And this morphs itself, I think, more into the male gender than the female gender. And that is kind of societal, right? I mean, the female gender has been oppressed for since the beginning of time, probably in some sense, depending upon your belief system of how things started. Um, and so, therefore, women asserting authority sometimes is looked on negatively. Um, but I don't think there's a huge movement amongst women to gain power beyond what they should have. I just don't see that. But men, there's certainly a subset of men or the male gender that want to reclaim that time where they were the dominant gender and they feel very threatened by other things. Yeah. It comes from a fear of being isolated and alone, or they just feel isolated and alone. They're very insecure. They're insecure not only with their role in the world, they're also insecure about their physical attributes as well. And so, they blame their loneliness on everybody else. Now, it is true you can be in a situation where being lonely just happens and it's hard to get out of, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about from a very early point in stage. I don't have any friends because they're all crazy. I don't have any friends because, um, they're all mean to me, things like that. They don't want to have anything to do with the truth. They don't want to know the truth about themselves, and they're not out to discover it. They're not interested in self-discovery. They're not interested in growth. They are simply here to go about their lives in a way they find, like, it's like their water rolling down a hill. It's going to take the path of least resistance. It might sway and turn and snake as it goes down the hill, but it's going the easiest way, the way that, essentially gravity draws the water, right? I think people that suffer from toxic masculinity are similar. They just find the path of least resistance, a path where people aren't going to confront them with the truth, a path where they're able to live their lives with the rules that they have in their head as being true and never challenged. And if they are challenged, well, then you're a radical feminist, or you're a liberal, or you're a snowflake, or you're a whatever other names they're throwing out these days. They're they want their message to get out there and they don't understand why people don't want things to do with it, but they're still going to spread their message. So this becomes a little bit dangerous. And I think we're at that point in society right now where this, especially if you have young male children, you need to be watching out what they're consuming as far as social media, and making sure it's not promoting these ideas of, not advice as a tarot reading, but um, young male minds, speaking as somebody that once had one, are easily influenced. They just are. That's why, having uh, good role models is important. Okay. Yeah, they somehow convince themselves that they have it the worst, right? Like life is not fair and it is stacked up against me, and from no fault of my own whatsoever. And so for that's why I'm viewed so poorly by society. That's why I maybe don't have the wealth and status that I want. That's um even if I have the wealth and status that I want, people still view me negatively because the world's just stacked up against me. They always have this kind of, it feels like there's always this self-pity. And, their physical attributes will never be sufficient. Um, you know, Using another public figure for entertainment purposes only, this is why Elon Musk got hair transplants, right? He couldn't have that and still view himself as being a man's man, whatever they think that means. I don't know what that means really. They feel like they constantly have to defend themselves and it's the world's fault that they have to defend themselves. That's at the center of the reading, and I think we've picked up on those energies as we've gone through. They feel like they're owed something, giving and receiving. They feel like they have things to offer, and they feel like people owe them. What they have to offer is the best thing ever, and you should be thankful, and you should owe us for me telling you. It's not that far deviated from narcissism. Like they often go together. That's why I group them all together. Again, juggling things, getting their influences from others in the past. They'll often hang out in groups amongst themselves, circles of support around money or just support. And this is where I think things get really dangerous is when you have a group of toxic masculine people together, they'll can act in a group mentality now rather than just an individual mentality. And by the way, women can also have toxic masculinity. It's not confined just to the male gender. It's just their views are that, you know, males have it harder. Males are oppressed. Like, we should go back to the biblical sense and where the wife obeys the husband. There are women that subscribe to these beliefs as well. And then they want a new beginning. They want things, they don't see, they want a new beginning. What they don't realize is that their new beginning is actually the past. They want to go back to a place where men dominated the world and were thought to be the superior gender, and they really can't handle it not being that way. And there are some women that feel that way too, which is a totally different reading. So they feel isolated and alone because of the world, not because of anything they've done. They feel like they're constantly defending themselves because the world is crazy and insane and they don't see things from their vantage point, and they think things were better in the past. They juggle an awful lot. They pull influences from people from history, from people in current day that are more influential. Again, they will defend themselves, and you can talk to them as much as you want. They're not going to listen because they don't want to know the truth. They just don't want to know it. They feel like the world has treated them very unfairly, and um, it has nothing to do with anything they've done in their life. They are the victim. They feel like you should be hanging on every word they have to say because what they have to say is super important, and they think you should thank them for it. And their support system is other people that are in the same toxic masculine thought bubble. They rarely are able to get out of their own thought bubble, and this is where things get kind of dangerous. Underneath, I think a lot of them don't want to be that way, but again, it's hard to change things. It leads to a lot of heartache and a lot of stress, which we're going to get to. And it leads them to deceit. And this could possibly only be deceiving and deceiving themselves. It's not that they're necessarily thieves or anything like that. I'm not saying that. This will often go along with the pathological liar, but it feels like this card, what I'm getting from the tarot, is this about the lies that they're living in their own head that they're telling themselves. Women aren't attracted to me because they're all lesbians, for example, would be something along those lines. Okay. So what are we let's see. I have two questions up. What does this do to their bodies and souls? And then what are we supposed to do about this? What can we do about this? How can we? I think I'll use the unveiled tarot. What are we who want a more harmonious, equal humanity supposed to do about this? See the Six of Cups, which is about the next generation. It's been coming up a lot in almost all the readings I'm doing. We got to protect the next generation from absorbing these views. Now, it's not going to go away in one generation. It's not going to go away in two generations. But, 20 generations, maybe. It can get better, though, in the next generation. It can be on a trajectory of improving versus I think we're kind of on a trajectory of almost wanting to regress back into the thinkings of before even the Industrial Revolution. So in the scrying bowl, along the edges of it, I just see a real bright light, like a ring, like almost it looks like a halo, but it's not over somebody's head. I think that is about creating a circle of safety, a circle of protection, not just physical protection, but also mental protection. Now, that probably applies to some people more specifically than others. Yeah, we're in this state where things really matter. It's the Wheel of Fortune stage. Are we putting so there's the casino and the roulette wheel. Are we putting all our money on black? Are we putting all our money on red? Or are we going to choose not to play the game? And I think the point is we're supposed to choose not to play the game. We get bombshells and surprises, swimming amongst the fishes, so to speak. It's like we can't control the fishes around us, but we can control our reactions to them. And we can control, if we have children and grandchildren, to some extent, we can control what they're absorbing as far as social media and education. At the King of Pentacles, this is often my card for Donald Trump. The rich man, we need to start not looking at money as giving people value. And I think this has already started. Most of us don't look up to Jeff Bezos. Most of us don't look up to Elon Musk. Most of us don't look up to Donald Trump or Bill Gates even. And I think I can never remember her first name. Scott Gates, who's also a billionaire. She was on CNN talking about, billionaires are showing who they really are. But she gives a lot of money to charity. Mackenzie Scott Gates, is that right? Mackenzie. I don't know, slip of the tongue. I apologize. I can't remember her name. But there are some rich people that also don't suffer from toxic masculinity and aren't pathological liars and aren't narcissists. So we shouldn't, there's not very many billionaires in the world, but not all of them are out to cause harm. But, I think the point is that we need to stop thinking of money as defining success. We get the Queen of Wands. We should define successes by pursuing our own passions. That's what I'm getting. And this would destroy the structure that they live under, right? If their structure is that their success is defined by wealth and status, if we can create a structure where success is defined by following your passions, that gets destroyed. And therefore, they have no sense of what success is anymore. That'll take generations to do, but at the center of the reading, it's about the whole world, and it's about ending this cycle, or at least getting this cycle to start moving in the correct direction again. I mean, it's not like toxic masculinity just happened 20 years ago and we're just learning about it. It's been there for as long as humans have been there. So, but it is about the world and moving forward. It's about defending our values and our viewpoints, and also defending young people that are in our lives and keeping them from a lot of this information. It's about using the the church, the Pope, the courts, and the government to promote ideas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know right now we're trying to roll that back, but that's because we have a toxic masculine president who's a pathological liar, who's also a narcissist, who can't handle a world where someone who's not a white male is valued more than him. He can't handle that. That's why he hates Barack Obama, right? He just can't handle that. It's the Empress card. It all starts with motherhood and fatherhood, but motherhood in particular. It all starts at a young age. So that is when the influence is the greatest. That's when they're more susceptible to be influenced and become part of this mentality. And we need to learn to walk away from people that are toxic to us. So the world's at a turning point. But the cycle is going to end whether we want it to or not. It just is a matter of how long it's going to take. But in the meantime, I think we need to be prepared to walk away from the people that aren't supporting us, aren't looking out for the best interest of our children. We use the church, the courts, the government to change worldviews, to devalue the value of rich people. And in the environment around, we recognize that we're swimming amongst this sea of toxic masculinity, but we take value in pursuing our own passions. We're defending young children in particular, especially our children and grandchildren. And it starts with the mother energy. Now, you don't need to be a mother to do this, right? You don't have to have children to do this. You nieces, nephews, doesn't really matter, right? Just being a support system that's not narcissistic or toxic. Yeah, it's all about families. It's going to be a heavy burden to bear. It will be with the 10 of Wands. But 10s are about completions, right? So we're close. We have the 10 of Wands and we have the 10 of Cups. And currently we're living in the 4 of Swords, which is a little bit unhealthy. But we're also pausing and suspending, and we're rethinking these. And a lot of people are standing back and like kind of aghast that the world is choosing to go backwards. The truth is the world's gone forward, then it's gone backwards, then it's gone forward, then it's gone backwards. But it always goes forward more, like it's get more forward, back, then more forward, then back. It's just the way the cycles have worked. So, but as we get into this age of Aquarius, I think we'll start to see a real shift in the paradigm. Okay. So, does being a narcissist, a pathological liar, or believing in toxic masculinity, does this take a toll on their physical bodies and on their souls? What does that? What can you tell us about that? Like, is it not just mentally unhealthy, but is also physically unhealthy? So mentally unhealthy, physically unhealthy. I think so. I think I'm getting the Three of Swords. I think a lot of them feel just really alone, like, but alone in a crowd. Like, it doesn't matter if they're surrounded by people. Particular, like people like Donald Trump, does this take a toll on his physical? I think a lot of them are obsessed with their health, which can take a toll. And particularly lying about their health. Like, we might all lie about our weight at the DMV, right? But lying about more serious things is not good. Everybody tells little white lies. It's part of human nature. I don't know why that is. It's just the way it is. Yeah, we get the Queen of Pentacles, um, unhealthy relationships. Yeah, it leads to it's a complete and utter downfall for them. Like, it does take a very big toll on their lives. Yeah, it sends a message to their brains about their health, their physical health. It's a tough life to live. And I'm not saying that I'm not empathizing. Well, maybe I'm empathizing, but I'm not justifying. I don't think we should justify these types of behavior. But I think maybe understanding that their suffering is okay. Yeah, their body's not able to renew itself the way most people's are because they're just constantly in this pattern. It's just a pattern over and over again. Sometimes people even repeat the same stuff over and over again. Like, they're not able to escape it. At the center of the reading, they're not able to plant seeds, the Seven of Pentacles. They're not able to envision a life where they're not oppressed, even though they're not oppressed for the most part. But they see the world as a world that's oppressing them, and they don't see it changing. And that in of itself is an emotion that can, cause some health issues. You get the Queen of Wands. They lack passion for anything other than themselves. You get the Page of Wands. They want they want to spread their message, but people don't want to listen to, which in turn causes problems. We get the King of Swords, the inability to use logic, which causes health problems. Defending themselves, the Seven of Wands. So my main takeaway from the set of cards is the Ten of Swords. They always feel like they're stabbed in the back. And when you feel that way, you manifest that. That's what I was talking about, manifesting things that aren't healthy for you. I mean, you can manifest yourself to be sick, I think. I mean, I don't think most people can do it, but I think in some situations you manifest themselves. And you think like the Andrew Breitbarts and stuff that died very young. Um, yeah, they don't live in reality. That's the problem. The Star card, people scare them. Yeah, we get death. Death comes early, and it comes because of all the burdens, the Ten of Wands. So that doesn't mean they die young. What it means is that they probably suffer physically more than we'll ever know because they don't talk about it, right? Because their physical attributes and their health are important to them and give them value. So it's a tricky situation. I think we see this with Donald Trump in particular. I think he lies about his health because in his worldview, he's not allowed to be sick, right? It's just like when he had COVID and then he gets in one of the Secret Service cars and drives around the city to show that he's okay. He can't have people view him as being ill because that hurts his ego, which he can't happen because that is what defines his whole life, is this narcissistic viewpoint that he's better, stronger, healthier than everybody else. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.